In 2003, a Japanese manga artist named Tsugumi Ohba gave a teenager the power to kill anyone whose name he wrote in a notebook. Every government on Earth read that manga, and every government on Earth recognized themselves in it. In 2026, there are 770 million surveillance cameras watching the world. 415 million of them are in China. The NSA collects the metadata of hundreds of millions of citizens every day. Every government on Earth built the world light Yagami wanted and called it security. Death Note is not a story about a supernatural notebook. It is a story about what happens when a single entity, a person, a government, an algorithm, gets to decide who is dangerous, and no one checks their work. Ohba built 3 mechanisms into Death Note that describe the surveillance state with more precision than most political science textbooks. The God complex, the belief that surveillance is justice. The Panopticon Effect, the population disciplines itself when it knows it might be watched. And the public support paradox, the majority endorses the system that controls them. L is not the hero of Death Note. L is the surveillance state. He uses every available tool: wiretapping, behavioral profiling, illegal monitoring, to catch Kira. The difference between L and Kira is that L reports to no one either. In 2013, Edward Snowden revealed that the NSA had been collecting the metadata of hundreds of millions of citizens through a program called PRISM. With access to Google, Facebook, Apple, and Microsoft, the government had become Kira. And like Kira, it had decided the ends justified the means. The NSA's Utah data center stores approximately 3 to 12 exabytes of data. That is more information than all the books ever written by human civilization. Every email, every phone call, every search, archived, available, searchable. The Death Note. But for entire populations, now. The Panopticon. This is where Death Note stops being a thriller and starts being a warning. In 2026, there are 770 million surveillance cameras worldwide. The NSA collects data on over 300 million citizens without their consent. 53% of Americans still supported this after Snowden revealed it. And on January 31st, 2026, China passed a new cybercrime law expanding surveillance, requiring real name registration and criminalizing broad online behaviors. Ohba published Death Note in 2003. The world built his story by 2026. In Kira's world, crime dropped 70%, not because criminals were caught, but because they feared they might be. The population disciplined itself. Michel Foucault described this in 1975 as the Panopticon. China built it in 2019. The 8 most surveilled cities on Earth are Chinese. Jeremy Bentham designed the Panopticon in 1791, a prison where a single guard could watch all prisoners without them knowing when they were watched. The prisoners would assume constant surveillance and discipline themselves. Foucault argued in 1975 that this was the model of modern power. Ohba used it as a plot device in 2003. Your government uses it as policy in 2026. L asks the most important question in Death Note, not who is Kira? He already knows. He asks, if you could catch every criminal, should you? Every surveillance system in history has been justified by the same argument. We are protecting you. The Patriot Act was protection. PRISM was protection. China's Skynet is protection, and in every case, the same thing happened. The tool built for criminals was used on journalists, on dissidents, on ordinary citizens who said the wrong thing online. 2001, the Patriot Act. 2007, PRISM. 2013, Snowden exposes everything. 2019, China deploys 770 million cameras. 2026, China passes its cybercrime law. In every case, the government called it justice. The people it silenced called it control. Death Note asks, what is the difference? And it answers, there isn't one. Once the power exists, the justification is optional. This is what the surveillance state looks like from the inside. Not from the NSA dashboard, not from Kira's notebook. From the street. From the person who doesn't know when they're being watched, and therefore assumes they always are, and adjusts their behavior accordingly. The Panopticon works. That is exactly the problem. Nier's answer in Death Note is not a surveillance system, it is a team. People who check each other, who can be wrong, who have to justify their conclusions to someone else. Nier defeats Kira not with more power, but with accountability. Ohba's answer is not naive. He does not argue for no oversight. He argues for the same thing Nier demonstrates, oversight of the overseer. The question Death Note asks is not whether surveillance is necessary, it is who watches the watchmen. And in 2026, that question has never been more urgent. Subscribe. Because next week, we are decoding how Berserk is the most accurate portrayal of the military-industrial complex ever written. And drop your answer in the comments. If you had the Death Note, would you use it? I read every single one.